Good. Thanks for staying here and, well, enjoying the last few minutes with me. I hope it won't be too boring for you. So I didn't get a broom to actually do the cleaning up, but actually you can see it like this as the last presentation. I promise not to take the half hour, so it will be shorter. I'll be talking a bit about well, security in the context there of licensing, some 5 things maybe you can take home when you're actually, well, taking care of licensing that maybe you should have a short thought about, or maybe a longer thought, if you want to pick that up, because some of them I think really make sense. Okay, good. So my first question actually is to you, and what are you associating with security? So we have one poll on that. The last poll. Yes. So let's see if I get one more than one answer. Interesting. I did the exercise last week with another crowd. Ah, yeah, sure. Good. Too obvious. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's gone. I want it. Okay, can we bring it out again? So in fact, last week was pretty different because what was there is somehow security as a burden. Maybe it was because it was in Europe. I don't know. Maybe there's a different attitude towards security. Everybody's annoyed by whatever is there, more concerned about privacy and whatever, all of these things. I don't know. So, in fact, it's great that you have this attitude, and we also have this attitude. And I want to give some background what we are doing actually to enable you doing that. Can you? No, I can't click. Can you? Okay. No, that's not the one. Yes. Okay. Yep. Okay, so when you think about software licensing and you think about history, it's not the latest technology, at least in its roots. It started off in the 80s, 90s with software copy protection, where more or less the software vendor was screwing the security to the machine. So via parallel port dongle, for example. So not really what you would expect today as, well, friendliness to a user, the right user experience of how you're consuming software today. So today it's looking vastly different. And in fact, if you want to be successful with your software, you will have to support a lot of things to give the flexibility to your user, to give them a great user experience. And well, the simplest one is if you're still sticking with hardware, that, okay, you can take the dongle around, great. It's much more portable than if it's screwed to a parallel port today, okay, easy one. But also all these other forms of licensing that, well, enable you to consume the licenses from different machines and migrate it between different machines easily without having to do through a cumbersome process. Not even maybe having to be connected to the outside world to move it from machine A to machine B. Or to have the total flexibility that you anytime can pull the license out of the cloud to your machine, lease it there, consume it there. Next time you're actually using the same application on another machine, doesn't really matter. So all of this flexibility somehow in this always talked, well, context of, well, security, often if security is in place, it, well, makes you less flexible, it's not really convenient and all of that. How does this fit together? So this is where I want to talk a bit about. So we have in general invested that you can, well, rely on what's happening on the machine out there. So that you can trust somehow that even this machine might be not even connected at this point in time, the software there is behaving like it should. So this is somehow one of the key elements that we see as a fundamental point in a licensing system. Yeah. So it's to give you all the flexibility and all the nice things that you have heard today and yesterday, we are working on the background to secure this, and one of the key elements here is to put security, somehow a secure environment around the licensing, around the application on this remote machine. So this can be really in the form of hardware. We've also heard that. That, for example, if you really want to go the utmost security level, that we even have a secure environment where pieces of the application can be pulled out, can be sitting there with the application only encrypted, and only if this dongle is there, they can be executed on the dongle itself, and you really have the strongest binding that you can actually get because you can't copy the dongle and you can't really figure out what these pieces are doing without the dongle. But that's somehow just one part, and this obviously is only the case if you really have hardware sitting there, if a dongle there. The other things that we have obviously invested over the time is hardening the pieces of software that are coming from us. So that we have built also tools, are using tools to harden the licensing components, the license manager and the network, and the licenses components, the libraries that you're linking with your application, that they are protected against reverse engineering, against changing, so that they become a trustworthy environment where the license gets evaluated and acting according to that. The third piece then is, well, there's somehow also your application. So for your application, well, you're linking in a library, but this is somehow typically a very, very well-defined interface that maybe a hacker would want to address and actually attack there and replace maybe the library there. And this is where our tools like the envelope and some other tools that we're also having there can be used to actually make this reverse engineering also on that level of your application difficult and protect actually this integration there. So the whole thing is about creating a trustworthy, secure environment somehow there on the machine that eventually can support all this flexibility there about how you want to do the business with your customers, enabling all these different kinds of. And putting this together with a connectivity to a backend, you are eventually getting there that you can really all do, give this customer really the full flexibility there. So now the customer can actually go on maybe with a license, even if he typically can just use it to a certain degree, means, I don't know, he can consume 100 megabytes or whatever, but in fact you are not actually cutting him off at this point. You are securely recording the data, you're bringing that data back home, and you're doing a true up afterwards. So what also some of our customers are doing is, I call it the drug dealer license model, yeah? So in fact, you can use everything, and you are, for example, at the end of the year, negotiating actually the price for the next year based on what he has been using. So very open, very flexible there, but being in the position that you have somehow this environment there that brings you home this data, you're having the foundation there to actually do these discussions and really have such a flexible business model with your customer. Obviously, all the other things can be supported there, because now when you have this trusted environment there, you can make this environment, call home at a certain point in time, because the license which is put there, for example, is just for a month. And it has to be renewed somehow in that time frame, otherwise it will be shutting off. So it's in the interest somehow automatically that you will get data because you will be connecting home. So this is what the trusted environment together with the backend system really enables you to do, and really have the flexibility to do all these models. And we see this as really a core element of our system from a security perspective, to have these things in place that allow you to go so flexible to market. Okay, so having this somehow as an intro, this somehow drives two to-dos actually. The first one is really think about that, think about the flexibility. We have put the things in place so that you can go securely to market with that. So don't, if you are a security concerned, don't too easily confine your customers with very much locked down license models. Second one is, you have seen that we are doing things on our end, and we have made tools for you to be used. So use our tools also really to close the chain up to your application, use the envelope and these tools to protect the whole system so that the whole system actually is protected. So this is around these. Let's go a bit further. When you have a licensing system, you have the backend there, and eventually you're generating licenses. This is somehow like the crown jewels of your licensing system. There's a credential there that you're using for signing licenses. We have already had a case where a customer did not really think too much about it, and well, in fact, this secrets got spread, and therefore licenses could be generated. So when you are taking care of the security of your system, also think about that you have the right policies in place, who has access to these systems, and well, make sure that you are, well, making sure that they are getting implemented and really being used. Yep. So that's basically about that one. It's the third to do. Next one is, we also saw another thing that is, well, happening. Sometimes under time pressure, you might be releasing a version where licensing is not put in place. That can be a very critical thing, because even if this is somehow the first beta version, which is not even the release version, hackers are creative. They might be taking your release version 2.0, and in fact, by reusing some components of the unprotected version and actually build a version that is nearly as functional. A typical critical thing is there that maybe you have one component there which is just taking care of the licensing. Yeah? This typically does not change over time. So it is relatively easy to take an older one and actually put it to the new application. So the stronger you can in your implementation integrate really the licensing library with the logic itself, the better. So this is what we are in general recommending there. And really be considerate about that, even if it is, well, maybe typically you're linking in the licensing library, but you're also having a version where there's no license check. It's also a very good hint for the hacker actually where to look at and where to change things. There is sometimes the pressure that you cannot make a version which is really licensed, node locked or whatever. Yeah? So in these cases, what I would be recommending is don't go the way where you throw out the licensing calls, and go to the fact that you're using a license which is not node locked, so that could be theoretically going anywhere, so it satisfies the requirements. But in fact, in the license, you can typically put data that basically is verbose, that you can display, and put in there the company name, and preferably even the one who's responsible for this license, for the security of the system there. This is somehow psychological copy protection that is still better than just having something which is nothing there, if you are forced to somehow go such a route. So really make sure you have a very strict control about either the unlocked or the non-licensed versions. Non-licensed preferably never, and unlocked, well, use some psychological copy protection to get some security at least in place. And the last one, unfortunately we're seeing this pretty often happening. Well, I think it's a, well, kind of human aspect of it. I have built a system, the system is working, why should I change a component if I don't really want some new functionality out of it? But new functionality here is very important because, in fact, when you look at security, it is outdating. Just if you are reading a bit about what is happening there on the hardware side, there are always new attacks to actually extract secret keys out of secure environments. Yeah. Old ones are like physical intrusion, where then you're actually probing. This is becoming more and more difficult with finer structures, with smaller structures there. But there are also attacks somehow where you actually use light coordinated somehow with the execution to change the execution, which, for example, introduces faults somehow in the execution or spiking the voltage there on hardware. And by having these wrong execution happening, can also find out secrets inside. And some of these things on the hardware side also map to the software side. There's, for example, a technology that we are also using there, which is called white box cryptography, because we have to have a secret sitting there in software, in the software case, that, for example, talks with another system there. It can be a session key, for example, and we don't want to reveal this key. And there's on white box cryptography, for example, there are some of the hardware attack technologies are also applicable there, so you could also find out secrets there. So we are obviously also updating our stuff to actually avoid these attacks. But there's also another one which is really a strongly evolving area, and this is we have a lot of malware, and malware is more and more also a research field. To analyze malware, you have to get through their protection. Protection of malware is relatively similar to protecting somebody analyzing your code, yeah? So the advances which are done there are helping, well, also crackers to analyze software. So it is important that also you are updating to the latest libraries, to the latest environments from us, that they are protected against the newer, well, analysis systems in the malware arena. So really, you should make it as a standard habit that you are verifying about the latest versions from us and really getting them also into your production code. This basically concludes the list, so brief summary. You really use the flexibility. We have put the security in place that you really can go this route. Use our protection tools to protect also your application to really close the loop. Take care about the crown jewels, about the signing of your licenses so that you have restricted access there and these can't be stolen. Unlocked versions, really have a second thought what you're doing there. If you really have to go such a route, use at least psychological copy protection and update to the latest versions from our end. So this basically concludes what I wanted to have as a 5 items to have as a checkmark list for you for the evening today for some homework. Any questions? Anything you're curious about? Yes.
We ship some of our products in web app form using like scripting languages. And we kind of do a big hand waving thing over that because we have some super basic. Yeah. So. Real quickly, we ship some of our products as web apps in scripting languages. We happen to use Ruby, and we make like simple license checks there, and we just kind of know that a customer with half a brain can go into the Ruby code and just find where we do that and neuter that. So we've tried a little bit of stuff, but nothing too sophisticated. Have you guys thought about that area at all, or versus like compiled languages?
Yeah, the problem is that you are somehow at the lowest end of the food chain there. Yeah, so it's not even just user mode code; it's even interpreted one where you see everything. So there's. Well, it depends on the environments that you have to go to. If you have to really be flexible you have to go to any platform, it really becomes a problem. If you somehow can restrict the execution environment maybe to Windows, then you have some chance that you actually do it as encrypted data, and you have the Ruby interpreter basically actually loading that as encrypted data, decrypting it internally and using it. But as I said, it's very much target platform specific there. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much.